the Why We See Movies podcast. I'm your host, Ron.A. Joining me, as always, we got Paul.
Hello.
And Ivan.
What's up?
Today we're going to be reviewing the fifth film in the DC Expanded Universe, Justice League. Later on we'll do our Rant and Rave segment, but first, let's see what's going on inside the entertainment world with...
News on the mark!
Hey guys.
Hey. How goes it?
Not too bad. How are you guys?
I'm alright.
Oh, not so shabby.
Nice. All right. First news. Some very big projects have been announced. I'm sure you guys have heard that Rian Johnson, director of the upcoming Episode 9, has been making friends with the Star Wars people, evidently.
Has he ever?
Kennedy. Yeah, he's going to be helming a brand new Star Wars trilogy based outside of the Skywalker realm. What do you guys think of that?
I'm excited, and I haven't seen episode 8, but any time that you can do something different with a franchise that people know so well, I'm up for. I want to see different areas of this universe. I'm curious what era he goes to. There's so much depth of stories that he can draw from. I'm curious where he goes with it, for sure.
Mm-hmm. It'd be kind of nice to see movies dedicated to the Sith. Their history, the whole rule of two, how they came about, all that kind of stuff.
Just a villains movie?
Why not? Yeah, I think it'd be pretty awesome because you see enough of the Force side and you don't really spend a whole lot on the Sith side.
So like a complicated hero villain on the Sith side or just all out evil?
You know what? You got 3 movies. You can do better both. You know, there's so much to expand. Like, why not? And give the other side a chance.
Yeah, there's no word on if he's going to be drawing upon any of the official canon that's out there, or if maybe he's just come up with a completely original idea that they love. Who knows?
But is anything outside of the movie's official canon anymore?
I have no idea. I thought you guys might be more up on that than I am.
A lot of that has been totally disregarded, and they call it legends now. So a lot of the old books and novels, they're totally discounted now.
So nothing outside of the films?
For the most part, I mean, I think Rebels and Clone Wars, that's considered canon because that's directly influenced by Lucasfilm and whatnot.
There's lots to explore in there, I'm sure.
Well, there's tons, but again, that stuff, there's interesting stories they can explore in there, but that's all the current timeline. And like I said, I'd rather go to a completely different era, different corner of it. A
time ago in a galaxy even farther away.
Yeah. Exactly, right? Like, explore the deep corners of this galaxy and give us a different perspective on what's going on. Have a completely different feel to the franchise, like give it its own identity.
But as different as you might want it to be, you still want it to be Star Wars.
Oh,
and
yeah,
feel like Star Wars
for sure.
Yeah. You can probably only go so far until they're looking at a trailer and going, "What is this?"
To some degree, I mean, I think as long as the main core elements of Star Wars are there, fine. But I don't mind a different feel to it. Like if it's got a bit of a darker, grittier feel, I don't mind something a little more grounded. Like Rogue One, I thought was great. The more I watch it, the more I love it, and that had a different feel to it. I thought,
a different tone for sure. Outside of the Skywalker ninology,
and there's so much with these massive multi-online games that they have. There's so many characters in there that have a huge following and expanded on within that realm.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of the fans really want Knights of the Old Republic storylines adapted for the movies.
Yeah, exactly. So there's lots of interesting directions they can go.
And like you said before, who knows what we're going to be seeing in the next 2 episodes of the regular series. Something in there could be branching off to what he's going to be working on. There might be hints of something in there. Who knows? And I guess he's going to be for sure writing and directing the first one and probably producing the next 2 in the trilogy. This is a long commitment that this guy is making. If Lucasfilm is this happy with this guy, I'm happy with this guy. I feel confident, right? We're not hearing anything, any of the Rogue One or Han Solo problems with anything that he's been involved in.
That seems like a match made in heaven there. Like you said, they're happy and happy enough to give him his own trilogy. That's huge.
I knew when Disney was going to be plugging down whatever $4 billion that they weren't just going to end it with the Skywalker movies and say, well, let's just wrap it up. They got to get more bang for their buck. So it's not surprising.
We hope the Force is strong with this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, on to another massive project. I'm sure you guys have heard about this too, but Amazon is going to be creating and spending $250 million on a Lord of the Rings series. It looks like it's going to be more of a prequel, exploring previously untold stories of Tolkien's original writings, and eventually must be getting into the actual Lord of the Rings story. They can be paying for the story and not using it. Are you guys excited about this?
I am. As soon as they announced it, before they even said what the scope of the project was going to be, everybody knows the Hobbit story. Everybody knows the main 3 books of Lord of the Rings. But I mean, even that last book of Lord of the Rings, there's so many appendices and with so much backstory, and you've got the Silmarillion and all that.
Yeah, I don't know if they have rights to the Silmarillion that hasn't been finalized yet.
But again, kind of like what we just talked about with Star Wars, there's such a rich legacy of story and characters that they can draw on.
But I think a lot of people are saying is too soon.
Maybe they just want people to forget about The Hobbit.
Maybe. But then again, when you think Return of the King was released in 2003, wasn't it?
I think sounds about right, actually, yeah.
So we're talking 15 years already. We've already probably had 3 Spider-Man since then.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not. I'm sure the Tolkien fan base out there is going to eat this up.
I think it's like anything. If you make a quality product, I think people will turn out for it. We've talked about that there's going to be like a Watchmen TV series, and I mean, that's pretty fresh. It's crazy to think how old Return of the King is, but it seems like people still talk about it all the time. There's always references and everything. So you could even do something interesting, like a side story that takes place at the same exact time as the big story in the movies and kind of use it as a complement to it. So you're not trying to replace that in people's minds. You're just trying to flesh that out and offer like a different side story to go along with it and kind of enrich that and make it a little more interesting.
And I think it's one of those things, as much as we all talk about remakes and all that stuff and how much we don't want it to be, the reality is it's the way of life.
It's going to be hard to match the writing and acting and every other production design that went into those films. It's really going to have to be a Class A production.
At least Amazon has the money behind it to spend to make this a good show.
Yeah, it's piqued my interest for sure.
We're getting into a very weird time now where it used to be before with this golden age of television, all the great shows on TV. But at least we had the movies to go for the spectacle. They were in charge of the things that you couldn't only see in the movies. That's not true anymore. Now that's on TV too.
Yeah.
It's really getting hard for the movies to match. People are very happy to sit at home and watch epic spectacles in their living room now.
It's true. Like I haven't checked out the new Star Trek series Discovery. I've only saw about 5 minutes of it, but the 5 minutes I saw was beautiful and looked like anything that you would see on a big screen movie screen. I was actually kind of blown away. Like no longer can you just say, well, it's a good CGI for TV.
Right, it looks good for TV.
Exactly. Like now you don't really get that. There's no excuse for that anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it for news this week. Star Wars and Lord of the Rings.
2 pretty big properties to be in the news.
Yeah, I'm excited about both of them if they're done well.
Yeah, me too.
I have a lot more faith in Rian Johnson and the Star Wars movies, but the Lord of the Rings is good. Yeah, I'm all up for more. It'd be hard for me to imagine that I could replace Peter Jackson's movies with this because I really do adore those, but we'll see.
I totally agree and echo that.
Cool. Okay, for my next news segment, I have something that we actually taped earlier when we had Darren around. That was for the horror special. So we're going to be posting it now. Here we go. Do you remember a long time ago, right when we were getting this podcast on its legs, we did a few rehearsals and I had mentioned an experimental short film called Sunspring. It starred that guy from Silicon Valley,
right?
Thomas Middleditch, I think is his name. Remember it?
Yeah, wasn't that the one that you were talking about that robots wrote the screenplay?
Exactly. Yeah, written by an AI.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever see that film?
No.
Actually, yeah.
No,
and it was completely incoherent and oddly entertaining. Really strange.
Totally. Darren, did you ever end up watching it?
I did watch that. I watched that after you told me about it. And
it's so bizarre, right?
It's kind of awful, but it's...
The basic premise being that these guys fed this computer algorithm, kind of like that predictive text your phone uses.
Right.
Fed this program hundreds of science fiction scripts and asked it to spit out what it thought would be a science fiction script. And it came out with this. It was like an 11-page script that was pretty nonsensical.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch knowing how the script originated, but it's kind of a terrible... If a human wrote that, you'd think this is the worst science fiction short film I've ever seen.
For sure. Right. Well, they've done the same thing with Seinfeld. Some guys have taken episodes from season 3 and thrown it into the same system, and it's printed out a 3-page script.
Are you and I going to do this?
I thought you might want to be Jerry.
Okay.
And I'll handle the other characters, and I'll handle the scene descriptions. And I thought Paul and Ivan could be the studio audience.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. For everyone listening, if it seems like we're not making sense, or we're
computer wrote
mispronouncing or reading it wrong, right, we are not.
Larry David did not write this.
You got it. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
Okay. Interior Comedy Club.
What's the problem with the minimalism? You know, if you enjoy being around alcoholics, I'm going to go ahead and never return that dog.
Cut 2. Interior Jerry's apartment day. Jerry and Elaine are carrying leaves in their hands. He tries to grab a door, and Elaine imitates the door.
Well, the elevator opens in wrong side of the door. I thought maybe the door's not waiting, but it said going down, and Kramer couldn't help me move it. I just wanted to get out of it. Just get out.
He slams his hand on the door. Kramer enters, dancing with garbage. Hey. Great idea for a big sponge. Make it so large, you think it's got a fat clock in the middle.
It's so nonsensical.
Jerry takes off his bones.
Kramer, do you have a fun flashback to do?
Cut 2. Interior Monk's Cafe. This might be my favorite line. George is wearing a $20 hat that says, "Hello to horse."
Just the idea of George wearing that hat.
Hello to horse.
Hello to horse.
George speaking. I'm kind of like the captain of hygiene.
Mind the fish, George. Elaine, say something to George. Look for anything wrong with him.
Yeah, like his hat.
Right now, I want to find someone who doesn't believe George is back from the bathroom.
Well, at least he got the George and bathroom part, right?
Yeah, but is he wearing a shirt?
George takes the garbage and moves back. Elaine isn't exhausting, but I'll bet 3 days of straight fear I'm not bitter.
That's a fantastic line. I'll bet 3 days of straight fear.
That is pretty good. First dog to get George will be my friend. George walks at her seriously. I'll pay attention to George when he talks louder. He never says anything wrong, but his intellect is dying with him. George walks back to George's parents. Interior, Jerry's apartment. Kramer enters quickly, sliding around the floor on his knees. Jerry is watching TV. Jerry notices something in the refrigerator. Elaine smoking at the crowd. Hey, I'm thinking, Jerry. I'm really sweating, Jerry. Jerry, I have a woman coming, and she doesn't mean, you know?
She gets her shoulders in it. She doesn't mean.
Jerry relaxesly. Is relaxesly a word?
Relaxesly is not a word.
Relaxesly, handily talking.
Well, the couch is not going to be washed by me, you know. I've got Nick tickets on Wednesday, and George gets soup on the road.
Snacks are piled high in the guest room. Jerry spots them and takes a photograph. Kramer in a cynical voice. Jerry, can you be a big salad and give me a meal?
Can you be a big salad?
George enters, acting very strange. He picks up the remote control and tries to run with it.
Hey, George, what's wrong with you?
Oh, Jerry, just sit there and try to hear my machine. Jerry, I really have a hot dog in there, and I'm not going to lie to it.
Suddenly it turns dirty.
What's the difference? You became a legend. I got a big picnic.
And this last paragraph is so bizarre. George, Elaine, and Jerry lean back and forth, laughing hypocritically. Sports a couple of muscle relaxers. Jerry looks at the psychic's apartment, the phone, and George. Helen, where did she come from? Helen walks toward Elaine, and George has a double look at the bathroom. George is touching the cow banes. Kramer is barely laughing. Elaine making the newspaper. Jerry looks at Jerry. That's great.
That's great.
Jerry unlocks the hot end. He like it. Jerry is not heard with his fingers. Jerry walks out of the blade with a music pause. Cut 2. Back to the comedy club.
No. God, no. You should get out of here right now. You're a real turkey club without any crackers, aren't you?
Okay, that line is worth the read right there. You're a real turkey club without the crackers.
What's the deal with this ping pong guy? He mumbles something like, yeah, ha, oh, no, go. I've never been called an egg, but you could do it. Roll credits.
Well,
what's a cowbane?
I don't know.
This is great.
What's the deal with these robots writing my script?
Well, thank you for sharing that with me, Ron. I was very happy to be Jerry to your George, Elaine, and Kramer.
Totally bizarre, right?
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. So I don't think we're in serious danger of AIs taking over jobs from writers in the near future.
No. Anytime soon.
No, not anytime soon. Do you think the Seinfeld cast would reunite to produce this script?
That'd be great.
That That would be amazing.
I don't know. They might be able to pull it off.
I would like to see them do it just like they did with Sunspring, because those people had no idea what they were saying, but they committed to it.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And it still has a flavor of Seinfeld. It's weird, but it's got the characters right, even though it's nonsensical.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, it uses, nouns in the right place and verbs in the right place and so on, but it doesn't use the right nouns and verbs and adjectives to make sense.
Right.
I mean, there's enough sense in there, though. That's, I think, what makes it compelling. If it was just pure gibberish, you would trash it.
There's shades of the show in there.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of amazing, actually.
Right. Like you said about George in the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
All of these things, right?
And Elaine calling out his intelligence and Kramer always being weird.
Right. Elaine, make fun of George.
Yeah.
For some reason,
Exactly.
Right? I don't know how many shows you could do this with and get that kind of results, because Seinfeld is so particular. Such a different type of show. I would love to see it done with a few other shows, though. Could be really interesting, like The Simpsons or something.
The Simpsons, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
But pure nonsense, and I had fun reading it.
Cool. Thank you for indulging me.
For sure.
So that was the Seinfeld thing.
That was a lot of fun.
A lot.
Yeah. If they end up doing that for another show, we'll try to print
We'll tackle it.
Could be fun. All right. Shall we move on to our feature review?
I don't see why not.
We have to be ready. You, me, the others. There's an attack coming from far away.
Not coming, Bruce. It's already here. The others, where are they?
Arthur Curry, the Aquaman. It's on him.
Organic and biomechatronic body parts. He's a cyborg.
You should probably move. Barry Allen.
Whoever you're looking for, it's not me. You're the Batman?
They said the age of heroes would never come again.
It has to.
Justice League was directed by Zack Snyder. Stars Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Ezra Miller, Jason Momoa, and Ray Fisher. I'll give you the IMDb synopsis. Fueled by his restored faith in humanity and inspired by Superman's selfless act, Bruce Wayne, with the help of his newfound ally Diana Prince, enlists a team of heroes to face an even greater enemy. Okay, let's begin our first thoughts on Justice League. I'll go first this time. I am so on the fence with this movie, guys. I don't know if I liked it or not. I so want to give it a recommendation, and I'm going to give it a positive recommendation. I just decided that right now. But it's really close for this one. I think I liked it more than Suicide Squad and definitely more than Batman vs. Superman. But it didn't blow me away, that's for sure. I think the plot was very clunky. It really seems like a movie made by committee. There's so much good stuff in there. I really think the actors did a great job with their characters for the most part. But it just feels like there's a better movie in there somewhere that needs to be re-edited and refound. And unfortunately, this one's not it. Paul.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, like you, the movie ended and I was really torn what my exact feelings were on it. I'd say I liked it about on the level of a Batman versus Superman, but not even close to the level of a Wonder Woman. Like you said, there's little moments in there that I really love and I really liked, and I really enjoyed the actors' portrayal of the characters. Like, I thought the casting's spot on for all of them. And I liked the interplay between the characters. I thought that all really worked well. There were just a lot of moments that I really liked, but unfortunately, there was as much good, there was equally amounts bad. Like, I thought it was just a very loud and in your face and over-explained and boombastic movie, which didn't really work, and I didn't find the special effects were all that great and convincing. The villain was, I didn't like the design of the villain, and just very paint by the numbers. Whatever humor they tried to inject in it really fell flat, like to the point where I didn't appreciate the humor in Thor, but at least everybody else in the theater was laughing, so I could say, this movie's just not for me. Any joke that tried to land in this movie, like, it was crickets. It was actually kind of uncomfortable silence, because you knew they were trying to be funny, and it just was not working.
Ivan.
Yeah, to me, this movie felt like a huge overcorrection. And they went like, all right, let's just take what everybody complained about on the internet and do that here to maybe make some people happy, but it didn't work. I'm going to say that I liked Batman vs. Superman much more than this because at least in that one, there were moments in the movie when I was blown away, but I was like, oh, that is awesome. In this one, I didn't have any of that. There were little moments that I really enjoyed. I don't think I hated it, but it should have blown me away and it didn't. I would say one of the biggest problems in this movie was in the Batman vs. Superman, Lex Luthor had that overcomplicated plan. And with this one, it was such an overcorrection that every single character had to explain everything that they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it starts early. It starts the opening scene. The opening sequence. They start, and that opening scene could have been amazing.
The one thing that I can give the movie credit for, it's not blatant what scenes were directed by who, but for the most part, I thought it was going to be kind of glaring, and it's not. It was a pretty smooth transition, not making it in any way a better movie, in my opinion. Did you guys notice that this film felt like it was made by two different people?
I'd agree with you. There was a few scenes that, I mean, if you know Joss Whedon's work, it's kind of obvious it's his voice in that scene. But yeah, I agree. Not nearly as much as I was expecting. So he either did a really good job of mimicking Zack Snyder's style on what he did and just injecting his little personality traits here or there.
I think he's just trying to keep it consistent. He doesn't want people going into this movie, even though you can tell how many different people were involved, especially when you have some of these scenes put together, completely different tonal shifts, that he's tried his best to just keep it as consistent as possible.
And with all the problems that he had with meddling and stuff with Age of Ultron is like a masterclass in screenwriting compared to this one. How it handles characters and plot and pacing and tone. It all works, in my opinion. There's a difference between a lot of good people with Marvel having lots of great ideas and contributing and meddling. And this movie looks like it was more meddled with than contributed to.
Not having one clear voice. And that's the problem is that, it just seems fractured and all over the place.
But I guess what I'm saying, I don't even think if Joss Whedon did this movie from the start, if he could have had a chance with the Warner executives.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all.
It's amazing that he actually wants to make a Batgirl movie.
Maybe because he will hopefully be able to just see his... final cut, kind of like Patty Jenkins got with Wonder Woman, right? Where maybe a little more hands off and doesn't have to adhere to any overarching plot lines.
Well, I think they even came out and said that when they do the individual movies, they're going to let the filmmakers kind of be more involved and have their own vision. Hopefully that's true.
Well, and really at this rate, like there's all this ballyhoo about the Matt Reeves Batman trilogy and whether Ben Affleck's in or out, right? And
how can they even be thinking trilogy at this point?
I know. It's insane. Let's get one movie out of the so-called trilogy right first. But as much as part of me wants it to be involved in this universe now after seeing this, I really hope it is its own standalone thing and just do it good and right and forget everything else.
And I'm definitely concerned for Flashpoint.
Oh, I don't think that's going to be happening now.
But I think that they're doing something kind of Flashpoint, but they're cutting out a lot of the other stuff.
This weekend, I wouldn't be surprised if they recalibrate everything.
Except for Aquaman, because they're already in process of
except for something that's almost finished.
I think the problem is there's so much meddling, it's compromising whatever vision there was. There's no clear direction. There's nothing.
It's too bad we're at a point where we're actually talking about this so negatively now.
Yeah, we're talking a lot of negatives about a movie that none of us hated, but we all should have loved.
I think our biggest problem is that just a disappointment because we all agreed that we should have walked out of this theater excited to see this movie again as soon as possible.
And excited to see the next movie with any of these characters involved.
And instead, we're all like, meh. Even the story came out that the head of Warner Brothers asked for this movie to be trimmed down. I don't know if they wanted more showings throughout the day, or they felt that those other movies were too long.
And I think it did come down to economics with that. I think they knew that they had one opening weekend before the word got out, and they wanted as many screenings as they could in the first few days. Because even the Thursday night to Friday night drop on this movie was pretty big.
If the drop in numbers are that drastic for what should be the movie that everybody's been waiting for, should be the movie that everybody talks about at the end of the year, should be the best superhero movie of the year, if not that we've ever seen, to the point where I honestly don't know where they go from here. If you can't get people interested in your big three, how are you going to get somebody to be interested in Aquaman?
Are we actually saying that from this movie that the entire DCU is tainted?
I would say it was tainted before, and as much as there's things I really like about this universe, there's almost as much I don't like about what they do with this universe. I think I'm maybe a little more forgiving than the average person would be towards it, but I think Wonder Woman was a surprise. Nobody expected that to be as good as it was, and unfortunately, they've just killed any momentum that they got from that. I just think of Marvel, and if, all the build up to Avengers, if Avengers was as middling as this movie is, where would Marvel have gone, right?
This was the Avengers movie that everybody was worried about before the Avengers came out.
Yeah.
When Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor are both going to make more money than your principal team.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Why don't we move on to we'll move on to the big 5 characters in the movie, and nothing spoilerish. We'll just talk about the character and how they were portrayed and what we thought. First, let's go to the lead. That's Batman, played by Ben Affleck. For me, I think he continues to do a fine job with this, the older, grizzled Dark Knight Batman. But I thought the beginning of the movie was going to be much more Bruce Wayne kind of creating the team. I thought the opening was going to be with him with the beard, with Aquaman, right? It makes no sense with his first opening with the clean-shaven Batman and then the beard, and then you can tell that there's some bad editing there. But overall, I think he knows how to play this character. He just hasn't had a decent movie to be in yet.
I really like his portrayal as Bruce Wayne and Batman, and I think, if we can speak to the costuming, I think that looks good, and it's the most comic accurate Batman we've seen. One of the things I really enjoyed about what they did with Batman is that they portrayed the toll that this takes on him, and that he is the human amongst gods. And I thought they did that really well, and that's what I'm talking about. It's like those little moments I really liked. And
like 10 seconds.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's just not enough of that in there. But I like him, and I mean, he's definitely a man of his gadgets, you'll say that. But I really like his portrayal.
Yeah, I enjoyed him as well. I definitely felt that I agree with you, your comment about the beard. I noticed that as well. Did it take him a few weeks to kind of get his way up that mountain or something? But I was like, whatever.
I kind of like the idea that he's stepping away from being Batman for a little while because he has this important thing to do. And in the movie, it's kind of just like he just did this over a weekend.
Yeah. And then I do agree with you about those little moments of him getting hurt. Once again, I did feel they did lighten him up, with Batman doing jokes and stuff.
If you want to have a lighter side to the movie, you can lighten up everybody, but you don't lighten up Batman.
Or you have one character, make Flash your comic foil for everybody and don't have everybody making a quip.
Mm-hmm. Let's get to the next one then. His characterization I was pretty surprised by, and that would be Aquaman. What did we think of Jason Momoa?
He was interesting, but they don't really get too much into the depth of the character, and he just comes across as a badass warrior, and there's not really a lot of depth there. To me, he didn't really even need to be Aquaman. He could have been just anybody. He seemed kind of like a cheaper imitation of Thor almost. I don't know if that's what they were going for. I don't know, but definitely a different take on the character, which is fine, but I'm not sure it worked that well.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I was expecting more of a regality to him, a guy from another land who seems different, as opposed to this guy who's filled with these kind of colloquialisms and saying all these things that you would in a normal bar and stuff. He seems like just a guy who lives across the street. His jokes and his mannerisms is so contemporary.
There was supposed to be a huge flashback sequence explaining with Willem Dafoe, and then they left this little scene where they just really did that super quick little explanation, right? Which to me just didn't work. And that's why to me it's like, okay, so he just makes an appearance in Atlantis? Obviously
I got the reverse from the movie, that they say that this guy comes in on the King Tide or whatever once every season to help these people. But for the most part, I got the idea that he lives in Atlantis the other 90% of the time.
Because when he got there, Mara's like, oh, finally, the Queen's son has finally showed up here.
So he lives in that fishing village with those people?
I think he just kind of lives wherever he wants around the world. He just kind of travels.
It's a fun performance and he's having fun with it, and it doesn't make me less interested in his own movie. I still want to see it, but just different.
Basically lives as a drifter.
Yeah.
Just kind of comes across as a badass Viking warrior more than anything, really.
Yeah. But you still want to see the movie.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't a performance that killed any interest in the solo movie at all. I'm curious. It was just, like you, Ron, a lot different than what I was anticipating.
I'm still expecting the blonde hair and orange suit.
Well, you got an orangish sweater.
It's funny. And even in the opening DC credits, they have the old Aquaman in there. Just like, that's my guy. Let's move on to Ezra Miller's portrayal of the Flash. We saw him for 2 seconds in Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
And they didn't continue on from that plot point at all. we should
No,
mention.
it wasn't Batman versus Superman. It was in Suicide Squad.
No, it wasn't.
Batman versus Superman, he comes out
With
and
the
he
Flash
says,
appearance.
save Lois. Lois is the key.
Oh, you mean when he's also in that little store footage?
But he comes back in time and appears to Bruce Wayne.
in that
Yeah.
dream, right?
They don't
Right,
make
right.
any reference to that in this new movie.
Yeah. And then I thought you meant when you talked about it when he made an appearance in the other one as the Flash in Suicide Squad when he caught Captain Boomerang, which to me also made no sense because he is the Flash with the suit.
And then in this movie, he says he's never been in a fight or anything. So
I know. It's his portrayal. I wasn't a big fan of it, to tell you the truth. I know he's getting a lot of, he's the comic relief. He's the funny guy in this. I didn't laugh at anything he did or said for the most part. And I thought his wimpy portrayal, just a little too over the top for me. Again, this isn't the Flash that I want. And the Marvel guys, they just seem to know the characters right off the page and just like, that's it.
I think he's maybe supposed to be your into the group, like the person you kind of identify with the most, because he's a little bit awkward, especially around these other heroes at times and whatnot. There's a few moments that I thought were charming more than funny or whatever. There was one moment with Wonder Woman that I kind of chuckled with. He was fine. I wouldn't say he blew me away by any means. I think it's something that I could maybe grow to like, but having watched the Flash TV show, I could say I definitely like that portrayal more than this.
Yeah, I thought his portrayal was serviceable. I think the issue was, it's almost like the whole speed thing was also kind of amped up his energy, made him more jittery. It's almost like he's always on caffeine, the way he talks, just
And
too
he's got to
much.
eat all the time, right?
Yeah, which they didn't really go into that much, I thought.
Right.
I thought it was kind of nice how they did the whole thing with his dad.
Really? I don't think if you knew the comic books at all, you'd be completely lost by what that scene is about.
And I think the problem was that this movie was hurt big time by not having those movies individually done leading up to it. Because they're trying to establish 3 brand new characters in this movie and give them a few minutes to give them a backstory that it hurt it.
And I think, speaking to that point, if you have these introductory movies, leave one character to introduce in this movie, which could be Cyborg, because his powers are directly related to what's going on in the plot.
Right.
That makes sense. Then you're not bogged down with trying to introduce too many people. And then it gives a chance for these characters that you already know to breathe and interact and build.
So let's talk about Cyborg next. Probably the least
Known? Maybe?
Yeah, least known character and probably least established character in the film as well. His backstory is completely glossed over. And,
Huge.
And he is a pretty good one. But this movie just is going way too fast to deal with little things like plot and character.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I guess he's doing his best, giving what he can as the Frankenstein type portrayal of him, the man in the machine. And
The experiment.
yeah, exactly. His look came off okay. He has lots of neat gadgets and things like that, but nothing too memorable. No one's going to say, well, this is the new Iron Man, that's for sure.
You know, this character had such little time to develop. Like, his body's like, once all of a sudden a cannon pops out, he's like, no idea that it could happen. It's just such a quick learning curve where if you gave him his own movie where he has to battle that machine side of him and learn to gain control, would have made this character so much better here.
You're right. That's a big problem with this movie is that they're trying to set this up where these characters are so underprepared for what they're about to do that it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Instead, we have a movie where all of these characters aren't even ready to be in this movie yet.
It's almost like you needed this movie separate into 2 parts. First is the whole building of the team, creating the team, and then the second part is dealing with the threat.
And I guess maybe that's why you have to have such a generic villain, because you're too busy trying to explain to everybody why you should be rooting for this group of heroes.
Yeah.
So for me, I think Cyborg was fine. I actually really didn't care for his design. It just, I don't know. One thing that struck me about this movie too is that just there's almost too many textures. Everybody's costume has a different texture to it and everything, which I'm a visual person, so I don't mind texture making it visually interesting, but it just seemed like there was maybe too much going on there. Like, just make it look nice. Like, it doesn't have to have a lot of things going on. The performance was fine, but I just found visually a lot of things in this movie seemed to be lacking a little bit. And unfortunately, because Cyborg's such a CGI based character, what they did with him didn't really work for me. So
Same with the Flash's costume. It doesn't seem like that's the kind of costume that kid could invent.
no.
You know, and you don't really understand, like, it seems to be all like he's stitched it together with wiring and all of, and we have no background on this character to think that he's capable of creating something like this.
Because Barry Allen is smart, and the reason he chooses his profession that he does is so he can find the proof to get his dad out of jail.
But again, you're talking comic book side.
I know,
You're not talking the movie.
I know, but that's kind of like the backstory. That's where they're kind of trying to like go with this. Like you said, where is he building the suit? Where is he getting the parts? Like, you know,
and why did he pick red and put the lightning bolt and all of these things?
Yeah.
It's just such a mystery to people who don't know the characters in the comics. They're just like, huh?
Yeah.
To me, seeing the first trailer, I was almost under the assumption that he would just kind of almost what Spider-Man did, right? Where he's got his own piecemealed costume that just kind of does the job. And then he meets up with Bruce Wayne and Bruce Wayne's like, oh, I can totally hook you up with a better costume.
Try this
right?
on. You can go 10 times as fast.
Yeah.
Burning up.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But then they would have made him too much like Iron Man.
I think at this point, going closer to whatever you can with the Avengers is probably a better idea.
Yeah.
For our last characters, not quite last, definitely not least, Wonder Woman, the huge sensation of the summer in her own movie. But in this movie, for me, she took a step down from her own movie, that's for sure. She didn't seem to have, it's not such a bad performance, it's just not such a fully rich performance as she had in her own film, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think she was good. She's as good as anybody else in the movie, but unfortunately, like, you've got such a breadth of good established actors and none of them are really allowed to excel. And I think a lot of that speaks to the material that they've been given to work with. Like, Ben Affleck can act, but is he allowed to? Not with what he's given. And yeah, I don't think she stands out above anybody else. Like you said, in her movie, she knocked it out of the park.
She's so captivating in her own movie.
Yeah.
And in this one, she just didn't pop.
I agree with you guys. I felt that a lot of the things that she did in this movie was repeated. Like, how many times did she go for that clanging those things together in this movie? Every fight scene that she was in, she goes for that move. Give her something different. And also, she's supposed to be on par with Superman. Like, she was going toe-to-toe with Superman. And yet she was having such a trouble with Steppenwolf, right? You know, they were almost downplaying her because it's like this because of Superman.
Is Superman a spoiler, or should we just talk about him?
Well, I think
first?
Everybody knows.
Well, they kind of spoil that at the end of the last movie, really.
I guess so. Well, I think we've said everything that we need to say unspoilerish anyway, so we can segue our Superman talk into more spoilers.
Yeah,
and,
sounds good.
Okay. Spoilers!
Spoilers!
Super spoilers.
Okay, yes. Lastly, character of Superman. And I think this, for me, is why the whole DC universe was doomed from at the start. Oh, talk about a course correction with a character. It was so blatant in this movie, it almost makes me like the character I didn't like in the other movies because at least it wasn't so drastic. Zack Snyder, at least he knew what he kind of wanted with that character. It was a darker vision of Superman, but it was a distinct vision. And then, of course, you know, I have huge problems with that movie, Ivan. And, you know, I think the whole death of Superman, spoiler alert to anyone who hasn't seen that movie, sorry. The death of Superman in that movie is so
wasted.
Yeah, and not worthwhile. It should have been a defining moment in this DC universe, the death of Superman, and they just kind of blew it in their second movie, and they didn't need to. And because of that, they had to spend so much time in this movie, the rebirth of Superman, that when Superman came back on the screen, the rebirth of Superman should be just as big of a moment as the death of Superman. By the time we get to him in this movie, it's just like, you know, I just don't care.
You have to build the Superman to the point where people love the character. Right. Especially because Man of Steel was so divisive, right?
The end of Man of Steel, all he's done in that movie is show up and destroy things. People have no idea or the concept of what Superman is because they were just introduced to him a day ago.
Yeah.
So of course, you need that buildup of the world in love with Superman and why we love Superman so much. And this universe has completely sidestepped that.
For me, in this movie, I guess for someone's doing spoilers, the way that they brought him back, I was surprised how early it was. Like, I really wanted this to be, they go to war with Steppenwolf, they are losing, they're out of options, they're like, oh my god, if we do not stop them, the world is doomed. And this is like the last step of desperate people. Let's see if we can bring back Superman.
I think the movie, though, at the time when they do resurrect Superman, the movie wants you to think that the world is doomed and at its last peril and that they have no other choice.
But they didn't establish that.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah. But that's the stakes that the movie, I think, wants to feel at that moment.
But once again, going to my previous point, it was because they spent the first half of the movie putting this team together that they've completely sidetracked the actual main villain. By the time you get to this, it's like the world is already in trouble. And you're like, well, when did we get to this point? And then, of course, you saw the extra humor there with Superman.
I was literally like, who is this guy? first he shows up and he's dark and evil, and it's supposed to be, I thought, black suit Superman, but we didn't see that. And then all of a sudden with the whole farm scene with Lois, and he changes and everything, and it's just, all of a sudden it's just like, he's so happy and gregarious and smiley. It's just, he didn't smile this much in all the other two movies. You're right. It's a course correction that didn't work.
But you never know. I'm going to do a shout out to one of our loyal listeners, Sean. He loved this version of Superman. He was saying how happy he is to see a non-gloomy Superman.
But it's not deserved.
No, and I agree. That was my biggest problem, was just complete character shift from where he's kind of unsure of his role in the world to, I'm just like the happiest guy in the world, and I'm going to start doing jokes and stuff.
It's like anything in this movie universe to do with Superman is unearned. His death wasn't earned. His resurrection wasn't earned. And the
people's love for him?
Not earned. Exactly, because they flash forward to 18 months later, and then everybody loves him. And the problem is I don't know whether they consciously realized they screwed up by killing him off so early, but every movie since then, they're really trying to beat you over the head that the world misses Superman, right? Like Suicide Squad, it's like, oh man, the loss of the Kryptonian. And even the beginning of this movie, like things that shouldn't even matter. It's like, oh, do you think this is because the Kryptonian's gone?
The giant monuments in Metropolis.
Yeah, like it's just like they're trying to make something bigger than it is without even earning it. And unfortunately, there's stuff that could work. Like I like Henry Cavill in the role. They start the movie with him talking to those kids.
Yeah, let's start that. That opening scene is pretty awful.
It's awkward.
And the CG on his mustache is blatant. Wow. I didn't even think it looked like Henry Cavill at the beginning. It looked so weird. You guys had problems with the Grand Moff Tarkin and all this, but this is, for me, this looked odd.
See, for me, that scene would have been better if they showed him saving people more throughout those other movies.
And what do you think of the CG mustache?
I don't think I noticed.
To be honest with you, I totally forgot about it. And I've read online people were saying how awful it is.
Noticed in the movie. Just, that looks awful. As soon as the movie started, in 2 seconds, I'm going, well, that's wrong.
I wasn't really looking at his face, to be honest with you. I think I was distracted by his bright and shiny suit.
Right.
I will say, I did like the scene when he's at his monument and the other guys show up and he's confused. You know, he just got resurrected. He's not there. You know, Cyborg kind of losing control and attacking him, and now Superman's going after the League. And even the part when the Flash is running, thinking, oh, I'm going to sneak up behind him, and then Superman turns his head and sees him, and you can see the Flash is kind of like scared shitless.
So I'm glad you're reminding me of moments that I did enjoy, because I've been trying to piece them in my head, and I can't come up with many, but that was a good one too.
That moment, and there was also just kind of, there's that line that I really liked in Batman versus Superman, that Superman turns around on Batman, where he's got him by the throat and like, tell me, do you bleed? I'm like, oh, fuck. Right. That bat suit is full of urine right now.
You guys, there was a little Easter egg there that one of the cops that shows up played Jimmy Olsen in the Christopher Reeves movies.
Oh, really?
No, it was the cop at the desk.
No, I thought he was one of the guys that showed up from what I've seen.
No, I recognized him as soon as the scene showed up at the desk with the Flash when he's visiting his father.
No, it was the one from the picture that I saw online somebody put together. It was the one where he's got the gun out when they show up at the monument.
Unless he's in both.
No. Well, he might be in both, but I know he's definitely in that other scene.
So maybe it's something we need to look up.
Yeah, I found that interesting too, the whole Superman kind of collecting himself again, but it doesn't last nearly as long as maybe you would hope. He's confused when he's resurrected, and then kind of once he gets back to...
As soon as Lois shows up, he's perfectly fine.
Now, is it just me, or when Superman had Batman by the throat, did you not expect Batman to go, Martha?
No, that would have been funny.
Yeah.
Is there going to be an explanation as to where Clark Kent has been?
We were actually discussing this.
That's what I want to know. Like, he's assumed dead, and the body was in the Clark Kent coffin, not in the Superman coffin. So, what do you?
I wouldn't be surprised if they don't even mention it.
Yeah. Does anybody else think that Lois is a fucking idiot? Because it seems like she really enjoys calling him by his name, Clark, in front of everybody.
Yeah, Aquaman does the same thing to Bruce Wayne at the fishing village.
But at least those people weren't really didn't speak English.
Still, but Bruce Wayne's one of the most famous people in the world, probably.
True.
Batman and Bruce what?
But and then this one, once again, she shows up, the guy's flying in the air, she's like, Clark! Wouldn't she call him Superman?
Probably.
Like, hide his identity, like yelling out Clark. Just
everything
so
we've seen
idiotic.
from the Daily Planet, the reporters, and Perry White they're the most ridiculous news people I've ever seen in the world.
Well,
Headline.
How does the government not even know about who Superman is? Like, she figured out in 2 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another scene that I did like, and I'm sure it was a Joss Whedon scene, was the one with Aquaman sitting on the lasso.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That was Joss Whedon for sure. Right?
Yeah, that was one of the few moments that I legitimately laughed, and it was clever. Like I said, little moments of levity with the Flash, as far as like when he lands on top of Superman or lands on top of Wonder Woman, and then realizes it and zooms away, kind of like, ugh, that was awkward. And then when he's in the Batcave and he's sitting in the Batmobile for a split second, like, ooh,
he's like zooming everywhere, just checking out the whole place.
I will say, as Batman technology goes, that Nightcrawler vehicle is kind of stupid.
That's what I said
like,
as well.
What, like some giant insect type machine? Like, give me a break.
And this is from two guys that love Batman and love his gadgets, and we both thought,
It's
what
so
is this?
It
It's so
reminded me of
impractical.
So Bad as the AT-ATs from Star Wars. They're just like that, impractical.
But I think it had actual wheels, and then once you started going up walls, it did that thing. But I was still like, really? Yeah. It's like it seemed like it was specifically designed for it to be in the sewers.
Totally.
I will say I did like the little comment about the wind-up exploding penguins. Because made references to Batman Returns. That was pretty nice.
A lot of the best lines from this were done in the trailers and should have avoided. I was surprised at how many fewer new lines were in the movie than I thought might be. I hadn't heard that one before. I hadn't heard that one in the trailer because I thought it was going to be a lot of newer material.
Not a ton.
Any other moments that we liked we want to talk about?
I do. The moment in the Batcave when they're building the team and you see that moment between Bruce Wayne and Diana where you see the toll this is taking on Batman and how she nurtures him a little bit and puts his shoulder back into place or whatever. I think that was an interesting scene too because she's so godlike to actually see the toll that it's taking on this man and the lengths that he's willing to go to, that she has not experienced that, and just to appreciate the dedication to his quest and to his vision. I thought that was an interesting little moment.
One other scene that I really did like was between Batman and Wonder Woman when they're kind of calling each other out on where has she been for 100 years if you're going to give me all this crap about fighting. And because Batman's so smart, he knows all about Steve Trevor and everything, so he's kind of got her. And the mutual respect that they do have at the end of that scene, too, and understand each other a little better. It's probably the best dramatic scene in the film, actually, between two characters.
Yeah. And shows her anger. And you kind of played up before when she was using the same thing with Cyborg when she was cut off by the world and she's slowly learning to get back into it. So she's kind of trying to help him.
One thing I will say is if there's more moments like that, which have been cut out to replace with a bunch of CG special effects, then boy, did they make a mistake because the movie is missing those moments.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of nice in this one because how much does Diana really know about him and his history as Batman, where he knows all of these things about her? Because she never really threw anything back in his face afterwards, like maybe like a Robin comment or something, right?
She's too classy for that.
Yeah, but she was also angry in Amazon.
She's still too classy for that. One more Whedon-esque scene I was pretty sure would be one of the post-credit scenes. We'll talk about the first one, which was the Superman and Flash race.
The race.
Harkening back to some famous comics where Superman and Flash have raced multiple times. Great for any comic book fan who knows what that's all about. But I would have rather seen that inside of another movie, personally, instead of just used as a little post-credit scene.
And I think it's just kind of a throwaway scene to kind of show the camaraderie between these two people. And again, show the levity of Superman now. He's not your dark, grumpy Superman.
What if the Flash does win and he starts kind of bugging Superman about it? And then Superman kind of, let's do this again.
I want a rematch.
Then continue it on. But I thought it was a nice little scene.
It was one of the better scenes in the movie, actually. So, because it slowed down for 2 seconds and had some characters and nice character moments that we actually cared about.
Imagine that.
I did also like another scene. The Flash is saving those people in the truck and he's feeling so proud of himself. And Superman just brings a building filled with people and just like puts it down. That little thing. Yeah, I thought it was a cute little moment. The few moments that I really liked in this one.
Yeah, I wish I was writing them all down so I could be more favorable about this movie and more positive and say, well, I like this scene and this scene and this scene.
I think there was a really good movie in there. Just unfortunately, with all the meddling and everything going on, it's just not what was delivered.
Yeah.
Okay, and the next post-credit scene was, I'm glad I stayed. Holy smokes. Pretty big. I wasn't quite sure if it was going to be anything or not. So Luthor has escaped from jail, and he has a meeting on his big yacht with Deathstroke, the Terminator, Slade Wilson, who's a very famous villain in the DCU. and his introduction to the universe. What do we think of that?
I was kind of confused, to be honest, how the scene played out. It was the scene of a guard going into the cell, turning the guy around and seeing it's now Lex. Then he cuts to the boat with Slade on it. I thought that Lex was going to be on that boat, that it was like the escape sequence. Because, how is the whole rumor about if people didn't like Lex, he's going to be like the son and they're going to bring back the dad, which was going to be Bryan Cranston. That's what I was expecting. But the scene when we got, I still liked. Because now they're talking about putting together the Legion of Doom. Which I'm thinking that's going to be the next Justice League movie, if they even get to that point.
Let's introduce another dozen characters. And also, I actually think Luthor's was more ingenious in the Christopher Reeve Superman movie with the holographic images. Remember that one? I thought that would have been more interesting if the guard comes up into him and he says, "Luthor, what's up?" And Luthor turns around and he says, "Hey, what's going on?" He starts having a conversation with him, and then he says something that Luthor doesn't respond right to or something. And then walks right up to him, like puts his hand right through his face instead of just another guy in there. That would have been a little smarter.
And it was, to me, it was really obvious that it wasn't Jesse Eisenberg when his back was to him. I was like,
about 40 pounds heavier.
Well, and
older, you can see the wrinkles.
I was half expecting him to turn around and have like a Joker smile on his face or something. Just because why not throw another character into the mix, right? But yeah,
it would have made as much sense as anything else.
Yeah, I still like the scene that we got. It was just, I guess the way it was cut kind of threw me off a bit.
I thought it was fine for the 10 seconds we saw. Were you guys not surprised that at the end of the movie, when the Kent farm is saved, why Bruce didn't save it to begin with? Why did he wait until after it was foreclosed and all that? Like,
I was just kind of thought that he was so busy dealing with this threat, he wasn't keeping an eye on Clark's mom.
He's supposed to be the smartest guy in the world to know everything going on. Yeah, he should have had that clocked.
Yeah.
You're right.
Whatever.
There were times I was legitimately bored during this movie.
Actually, me too. And a lot of it was when Steppenwolf was on screen, and I'm like...
Because he was such a shitty villain.
Yeah, such a nothing villain.
There's having a bad villain, and then there's having a nothing villain, and he was really a nothing villain. Over the top, not interesting at all.
Yeah. Well, not just that, it was also how in the beginning they had to like bring together 3 armies with gods. And then they just needed Superman? So you're saying Superman is stronger than Zeus and all the other gods
the
combined?
Atlanteans and Kryptonians. And,
I did really like that moment where you see, the Green Lantern ring go shoot off to somewhere else.
That
I'm
was
like,
a fabulous 4 seconds.
That's awesome. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with the fabulous 4 seconds, Ron.
Yeah, I can. I'm going to make a culmination of all my favorite moments on a 90-second video for this.
But you know what? I'm kind of glad they didn't do more for the Green Lantern. They already introduced 3 big characters. Sure. They just would have fucked it up even more.
Exactly.
I think that's all you needed there. It was just a nice little moment to let you know, they are there. And
yeah, but what about Darkseid?
Exactly. I mean, that's what I mean about that whole prelude and that BVS scene with the Flash, and Darkseid's mentioned in this movie. So they are building to something. I thought it was going to be much more like a first part, like you said.
Yeah.
And by the time we get to this end movie, we kind of know what we're getting into with the next one. Not really.
No.
Okay. I think we've digressed and gone on long enough with this one. Why don't we move on to our final thoughts?
Sure.
I'll go first. I'll be really quick. This movie should have been a lot better. I should have loved it. And instead it was just okay. It was fine. And like I said before, there's a lot of good stuff in here and a lot of good performances and great characters. So just a really big missed opportunity. I have no idea where they're going to go with the future of this universe. I didn't even want to guess anymore. I'm kind of done with it. Paul?
I echo those sentiments almost to the T. Like, it's a movie that had a lot of great moments mixed in with a lot of forgettable moments. And in the end, it just ends up being a middling film. And these characters deserve better than they got. And unfortunately, it really does throw the future of this series and this universe into question. Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, I wouldn't say don't go see it, but don't
expect a great time.
Yeah, don't expect too much. I mean, it's fine. We're all fine here.
Yeah.
Boring conversation anyways.
Ivan?
I will definitely say that I liked the parts when the characters are interacting with each other the most. I think it just seemed like they threw in like the weakest villain they could find just so they can spend more time on the building of the team and then rush through this. They really shot themselves in the foot by not taking their time.
All right, so that was just one big fine for Justice League.
It's the Just Us League.
Just good enough league?
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
Okay, let's move on to our Rant and Rave segment. We have another review in absentia from our dearly departed Dex.
He's phoning it in again?
Yeah, that nerve of that guy. Okay, take it away, Dex.
All right, so tonight I would like to start my possibly related or unrelated rant and or rave with what I'm going to call my civil rights rave. Normally I don't like to rant and or rave about something that someone else has already reviewed on the podcast, unless I'm going to have a significantly different take on it than that person. And my take on Hidden Figures is not too different from Paul's. I'm still going to give it a positive review, but I am not nearly so hot on it as Paul was, and unfortunately Paul's not here to defend himself and his position on this film. But here I go. Hidden Figures, it's certainly a slick, glossy Hollywood historical production. It's got some wonderful performances. It's finely directed, and it checks off absolutely everything on the underdog movie cliche checkbook.
And the Oscar bait.
Yeah. It feels weird to say this because they have such disparate subject matter, but this movie has pretty much the same screenplay as Eddie the Eagle. As far as an underdog story where there's just constant adversity to overcome and people in the fields already scowling at the young whippersnappers or
Right.
the three ladies in Hidden Figures trying to assert their intelligence. I mean, yeah, it's a fun movie for sure, and it's a feel-good movie, which is a big appeal for a lot of people. It might be a feel-good movie, but it certainly is nothing special. It's certainly an important story. I mean, 3 African-American women working in NASA in computing, physics, and mathematic fields, helping get the first American in space, and if you believe the movie, very significantly so. I don't know what the exact real history is. It's an important story and highly interesting, told in a supremely generic, cliched manner. It just feels like every underdog movie you've seen in your life. The one thing I will say about Octavia Spencer, who I've enjoyed since I saw The Help, lately I'm starting to think she has one facial expression, and that's that kind of disapproving look she gives. And it's so many of her performances since The Help have so heavily relied on that one facial expression to get across a variety of emotions, but all within the confines of that one expression. It's getting a little tiresome, and maybe her career is built around it and what she's supposed to do, but the performances are all fine in this movie. The one thing I would also very much disagree with Paul on is the performance of Jim Parsons in the film. I recall Paul, in his rave for the movie, said he's very much doing the Sheldon Big Bang Theory thing. And I would say he's playing a physicist in this film, and he's doing his absolute best to not come across like Sheldon. And I mean, Jim Parsons is Sheldon, and I've never seen a full episode of Big Bang Theory, but I've seen more than enough to know what an icon that character is. And he's, to me, not doing Sheldon at all, trying very hard to show that I can not be Sheldon and have a career as an actor without being Sheldon. And he's good, but probably what Paul is saying is that it's hard to watch Jim Parsons and not see a bit of Sheldon in there. And Kevin Costner is very good. Kristen Dunst, also nice. A little underutilized maybe, but...
So you do recommend it?
I do recommend it. It's a good film. Nice feel-good story.
Not worthy of its Best Picture nomination?
Not worthy by a mile of being...
One of the
best pictures of the year, by a long shot.
Okay.
But I want to compare it to another movie I saw recently, which is also a true story from the civil rights era of American history, called Loving. The movie comes from director Jeff Nichols, who
has a wild resume.
And I mean, we on the podcast here have really enjoyed a lot of his films. Mud, Take Shelter, Midnight Special come to mind as the 3 movies I've seen of his prior to this that I really enjoyed. And he's a director to watch for sure. He's very talented. Loving It tells the story of part of America's civil rights that is a landmark moment that happened to people we know nothing about. There's no Martin Luther King involved. There's no Malcolm X. There's not even a Rosa Parks. The, divinely named Loving couple. Yeah, exactly. That's amazing that their last name truly was Loving. That was Mildred and Richard Loving, played by Ruth Negga and Joel Edgerton, in 2 fine, understated performances here. Ruth Negga just has probably the sweetest face in the history of movies. And maybe that's just this film, but you look at her and you just can't imagine anyone being angry with her. It just seems like such a sweetheart. But as the Loving couple, they play an interracial couple who traveled from their native Virginia to Washington, D.C. to legally get married, a little naively not aware that their marriage would not only not be recognized in Virginia, but they would not be legally allowed to live together as husband and wife in Virginia, as it was one of a few states that it was against the law for biracial couples to exist there. So they were given the ultimatum, either you get out of the state or you go to jail. And they lived in, I think it was Philadelphia or did they go back to Washington, D.C.? The movie's a little not clear about it. They went to where they had family. But I mean, they were from kind of a odd little niche area of Virginia where the blacks and whites really got together well. And it was a small part of a small county. And it was just common for them to hang out and fall in love. And I mean, their own parents and families wished they hadn't gotten married just to make it easy on everyone. Anyways, this is the couple whose desire just to live together as a family in the state they want to inspired the landmark Supreme Court case, which eventually overturned every state in the land who still had a law banning such interracial marriages. So, I mean, massive, huge, important case in the history of civil rights. Probably most people know nothing about the loving couple. I mean, I'm familiar with this case, and I couldn't have told you the names of the people involved and the two Jewish ACLU lawyers who fight the case for them in the Supreme Court. Yeah, this is, of the two movies, this is the far better one, for sure. I mean,
it's much more understated.
Yeah, it's very understated and feels like it's more historically accurate. I mean, it's not built to be a nice feel-good movie, and even though it's, man, what a victory they have by the end of it.
But it doesn't prey on those crowd-pleasing moments that you're talking about with probably Hidden Figures does.
No, it certainly doesn't, and it's a little grittier, and, I mean, Joel Edgerton gives them probably the most understated performance I've seen him give. He's barely audible half the time. And I just can't recommend this movie enough. Likewise, I'd say it wouldn't be Best Picture material, but it's very good and highly recommend it to anyone interested in the civil rights era and America's history of oppression towards African Americans and some of the large or small victories they won in their fight for civil rights.
It's such a historic landmark case. And like you said, they're just an ordinary couple, completely as ordinary as you can get.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're not looking for attention. They're not looking for fame or to be leaders of some movement.
No, I mean, they
just want their marriage to be recognized.
Exactly. They truly love each other deeply and wanted to perpetuate that love by living together, wedded, and wanted to be around their families in their native Virginia to do it.
Yeah, I think Ruth Negga was nominated for Best Actress too.
Was she? Oh, she
well deserved.
It's a very good movie, and I think I caught it on the Movie Network. Keep your eyes open for it.
All right. That was Hidden Figures and Loving.
A recommendation and a strong recommendation.
Paul, what do you got?
Yeah, Paul, come on. Defend your Hidden Figures now, bitch.
So, what did you think of that?
Well, Dex, if you weren't phoning it in, I'd hide my figure in you. I don't disagree with anything you said. It sounds like we had a very similar opinion. I think it was an enjoyable movie. Nothing groundbreaking other than the story, I think I said at the time. Some good performances, an interesting story that I think needed to be told. As far as Jim Parsons, which seems to be your biggest difference for me, he certainly doesn't portray the Sheldon character at all. I don't recall saying that he did.
I had to go back and listen to your review again after that, and maybe you liked it about 6% more than he did. That's about it.
Yeah.
That's not much.
So take that, bitch.
Yeah.
I think you need a recalculation.
Exactly. Okay. Well, while you're at it, did you want to start with the rant and rave, Paul? Or continue from there?
I'll continue on. So I think coming into this podcast, I had an idea how negative things might get just with the subject matter. So I decided to have 2 raves so we could kind of
balance the scales.
Absolutely. What I'm going to start out with is Blood Simple. The first feature film from the Coens, and man, you can tell their style and use of characters and structure of scenes and shots right off the bat. It's the story of a Texas bar owner who finds out his wife has been unfaithful, and so he hires a guy to put an end to her and her
cheating
ways. Yeah, really strong performances by the cast. Emmett Walsh is fantastic. Frances McDormand, she's always great.
Dan Hedaya.
Yeah, he's great. And I think the only thing I've seen him in before that I remember is Cheers. He's Carla's husband. And yeah, he plays a sleazeball here too, but man, he does it so well. And yeah, the thing that always strikes me about the Coens is that they always do something a little bit different. Like there's a scene later on in the movie where just the construction of the shot where somebody has a knife in their hand around a window, and that's an interesting position to be in. And
even the bullet holes.
That's exactly what I was going to say next is exactly bullet holes through a wall where you think, in lesser capable hands, it would just be showing the puncture holes of bullets coming through a wall. But no, they've got light coming through, and it just makes it visually interesting and brings something a little bit different to the table. And the elements of suspense and overall mystery, because you're never really sure who to trust in some regards. And it stands the test of time too, like, because sometimes you go back and visit these movies from a long time ago. Like, this was released in 1984. This movie could have been made this way today and it would be just as good. So yeah, they knew what they were doing early on. A strong rave for me. Loved it.
Excellent.
And then my other rave is a little animated short that I had no idea existed until 2 weeks ago. And it's funny because the property itself is something that I absolutely love. So I'm surprised it's something I didn't know existed. It's the 4th animated short from the Wallace and Gromit series. They released it in 2008 and it's called A Matter of Loaf and Death. So I've seen the first 3, A Close Shave, A Grand Day Out. Oh, Wrong Trousers. And then
this is all done by animator Nick Park.
Right. And Aardman Entertainment. And then they did a feature film, Curse of the Were-Rabbit. And they all, if they didn't win Oscars, they were nominated for them. There's just so much charm. It's all stop motion animation. And you can just really tell the love and the artistry put into these. And
this looks like something actually handmade by one guy.
It absolutely does. And you can find it on YouTube, which I was actually glad that I could, because I was curious, you know, being 2008 and kind of a lesser known property, how you'd be able to track it down. And yeah, it's just as good as the other 3. And it has a bit of a crime noir feel to it, a bit of a whodunit, or as they say in the movie, a whodonit. They've got a very, you know, dry English sensibility to them. For those that don't know, the series is all about this thick as a brick Englishman and his inventor genius dog and the hijinks they get up to. And it's just thoroughly charming. Like, I love this series since the moment I saw it back in the early 90s. And I wouldn't be lying if I said I was a little worried if they would be able to recapture the lightning in a bottle because it was 2008. You know, they had a little bit of time off from the characters. No, they recaptured the feeling and charm of this tenfold. It's worthy installment. It was actually nominated for Best Animated Short, so I really don't know how it slipped past me that year. But yeah, they've got some homages to some scenes in movies that you've seen 100 times, but they just put their own stamp on it. It's just thoroughly enjoyable. Absolutely loved it.
And it's on YouTube?
It's on YouTube.
And how long is it?
30 minutes, so it's not a huge time investment, and it's totally worth it.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Nick Park, and all of the ones that you mentioned, all the Wallace and Gromit are great. Yeah, if you haven't seen them up there, they're hilarious. I can't imagine anyone not enjoying these.
Instantly charming. I love them.
A Matter of Loaf and Death.
Yep.
That's it. All their titles are great. And Blood Simple.
Yep.
Boy, I couldn't get 2 different recommendations.
But both crime thrillers.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, Ivan, what do you got today?
All right, so for me, I'm going to be doing 2 raves, and they're both Batman related.
Okay.
So the first one is Batman versus Two-Face. So this is a continuation of Batman Return of the Cape Crusader. So this is set in the 60s with Burt Ward, Adam West, Julie Newmar, and William Shatner. And this one does the voice of Two-Face.
Yeah, animated.
Yes, animated.
Right.
And I like the first one, Return the Cape Crusader, and I like this one. They're fun movies because, you know, they're set in the 60s style in that environment. They're going to be cheesy and just fun. And I liked it for what it was because...
Do they have the PAL balloons coming up when you're punched?
Yeah.
Oh,
really? Yeah, they have that kind of stuff. Have you never seen any of those?
No.
Did you want to borrow one?
Yeah, I would check it out.
Okay. So I recommend it. I think it's fun. I think the voice cast did a great job. And it's also the last one you'll ever see with Adam West because, of course, he died right after this. And William Shatner did a really good job as Two-Face. And especially since Two-Face was never part of the original 60s show. They found him, I think, too gruesome with the face.
Right? Really? Yeah, I guess
not.
Him,
yeah.
Right?
So he was never there. And of course, there you have other characters appear, like some classes like the Bookworm and stuff like that. So it was entertaining. Yeah, so I recommend it for all of you guys. It's a fun little movie, especially if you like those 60s versions of shows.
I didn't even know Julie Newmar was still alive.
Yeah. You can tell that she was old in this one just from her voice.
All right.
Yeah.
What else you got?
And my next rave is going to be well, as you guys know, I am a bit of a Batman fan, and I like to collect Batman items, including Batmobiles, as I don't even know anymore. I haven't counted in a while. So when Justice League came out, I went to Toys R Us to get the new Batmobile. And, I was expecting to go there, spend some money, those Hot Wheels versions, because I always like to have, all the different sizes. Paul hooked me up with, the little bigger one, which was nice. But I wanted...
Did I ever?
Yeah, that's right. Anyways, so I went there, and I'm just looking for this, nice little $5 Batmobile, and lo and behold, There was a slightly bigger one, you can say. The Ultimate Justice League Batmobile. It was on sale, so it was only $200.
Holy smokes.
Luckily, I have a wife that enables my collecting, and so this became my Christmas gift.
So what's so special about this Batmobile that makes it worth the $200?
Well, first of all, it's 1/10 scale, so it's about half the size of that Tim Burton one that I have.
And for everyone out there, how big is that?
That's about 4 feet long. This
Okay.
one's only about 2 feet long. The nice thing is about this one, so it's a remote control vehicle. It hooks up to your phone. It has the guns, like in the movie, that actually follow the tires. The Gatling guns in the front spin. The lights come on, and even the steering wheel turns with the tires. You can raise, there's hydraulics in it, so you can raise it about 2 inches for off-roading. Of course, he does the special effects, the engine roars. He actually even has exhaust. So when you lay on the gas, kind of a bit of exhaust comes out. You can just turn on the exhaust as it is. Comes with a Batman figure that goes inside, and it even has a camera that's just behind Batman in the cockpit. So when you're using your phone to control it, you get the first person view as you're driving it around. It's awesome. I don't care. It's worth the $200, especially considering the Tim Burton one was like $1,000.
Does it climb up and down stairs?
No, it doesn't. This is not the Batman Forever one. But still, if you're a collector, you'll like it. This is an amazing one. So now I have that Batmobile plus the one that Paul got me. My collection is, I think, like 40, 50 Batmobiles now.
The enabling is maybe time for an intervention.
No. Come on. Your movie collection, and she lets you buy those.
I know. I'm not one to talk.
So, yeah, those are my two raves here.
Okay, so that was Batman versus Two-Face and
The
Ultimate
Justice League Batmobile.
The Ultimate Justice League Batmobile. What if they change it for the next movie? Then you got to get another one.
I hope so.
The downside? Well, Christmas is coming, so.
But that is my Christmas gift.
I bet you're already playing with it.
Yeah.
Back in the box.
That's what I told the wife.
Christmas morning.
She actually wanted to wrap it for Christmas. I'm like, no, I'm playing with this right now.
It makes it easy to put under the tree. Just grab it from one room and put it under there, and there you go.
Just drive it under there.
Exactly. Nice. All right. I'll move on to my rant and rave. I have two movies from this year to talk about. Yeah, neither one of these are raves, that's for sure. First one I'll talk about is a movie called A Cure for Wellness. Directed by Gore Verbinski. He's the director behind movies like The Ring and the Pirates movies and The Lone Ranger. None of these movies I really like. I don't know why I keep coming back to this guy. I think he makes really good-looking movies, that's for sure. He's definitely a stylist director. I just wish he picked better scripts. So this movie stars Dane DeHaan, Jason Isaacs, and Mia Goth. I'll give you the IMDb synopsis. An ambitious young executive is sent to retrieve his CEO from an idyllic but mysterious wellness center in a remote area in the Swiss Alps. I love these kind of movies, Stranger in a Strange Land, where you put an ordinary guy into a situation, to a new world, but he doesn't fit in. And this movie works pretty well for a while like that. It's kind of got that Shutter Island kind of feel. And it also reminded me of Steven Soderbergh's Kafka. It has shades of that film as well. But eventually you just kind of lose interest, mostly because, and I hate to rag on this guy again, the actor Dane DeHaan, he was the actor in Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. And I actually said in that review, if you had switched the actors, that movie might have worked. Maybe the same thing again. This guy is just not a commanding presence. I hate to say he's a bad actor, but he just doesn't hold my interest as an actor. And this movie is about 2.5 hours long, and he's the central character in it. And he's kind of dull. The idea of a spa being a scary place, I don't know how well that works, seeing a bunch of old people getting massages and stuff.
Well, that is scary.
It's kind of gross.
It works to a certain point. Yeah, maybe certain ageism factors and stuff. But they did a movie like this similar in the 90s called The Road to Wellville, which was a comedic take on these kind of places. But
yeah, I saw that movie.
Yeah, with Matthew Broderick and Anthony Hopkins. Yeah, this one, it wants to be a good thriller, and it's got these Cronenberg horrific themes and images dealing with the body and bodily horror. There's some genuine disturbing and unsettling scenes in this movie that really kind of creep you out. There's a Marathon Man type sequence, if anybody knows that movie, and the dental scene in that movie. There's a scene in this one that is almost as good or almost as hard to watch, I should say. But overall, it's just, I didn't care too much about the final resolution. Jason Isaacs as the villain isn't very memorable, and it's a very well-made, good-looking, dull movie.
It's funny because, the more I hear about this Dane DeHaan, the less I'm inclined to want to watch anything he's in. The only thing I've seen him in, I will fairly contest that you cannot judge him on, and that's Amazing Spider-Man 2. And that's because...
He was pretty bad in that.
He was bad in that, but you had stacked actors like Paul Giamatti and Jamie Foxx that were also equally awful. So it's hard to pick him out of that crowd. So I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, with the two stinkers you've talked about, it doesn't really paint a very good light on him for sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's a bad actor and he might be better in a side performance or a side character and stuff, but to hold a film like this, he just doesn't have what it takes.
Doesn't command the attention. That's too bad because, the trailer looked really intriguing and, I was looking forward to possibly checking it out.
Yeah, not an outright bad film, just not a very good one. A lot of potential, but not worth it in the end. And that goes right into my next rant, that's for sure. And talk about missed potential. I finally got around to seeing The Mummy. Wow. Oh, Ivan, you're so right on this. So I really can't remember what you had to say, but I'm sure words like silly and stupid and didn't take itself seriously. And like talk about a movie that looks like it was made by 2 or 3 different people and then written by 5 others and produced by 6 more. Yeah. It's totally a movie made by committee. And to set up your whole universe with a film this bad, I don't know what they were thinking of. I think Tom Cruise gives a pretty bad performance in it, or at least not knowing what to do. They totally took the edge off this character completely. And the villain in it reminded me a lot of the Enchantress from Suicide Squad. Very dull and boring. Then they do this whole thing with them having his dead buddy kind of resurrect that straight from American Werewolf in London. It works in a certain type of movie, but not this one. It's just a complete mess all over the place. A blown opportunity.
And it really seemed like they only had the buddy with the ghost. They wanted like a comic sad relief character.
You can tell that they ripped it off so completely from American Werewolf in London and just said, well, that's a horror movie with a comedic element. We'll just take that comedic element and put it in our movie. Completely doesn't work. This is an awful, awful movie. And as you guys know, I had big hopes for this franchise and what they could have done with it and all the possibilities. Like they said, they wanted to make these kind of movies, the Avengers Dark Universe. And I really didn't know how far they were going with that until I saw this. And it's such a complete ripoff. And to think that they could do that with this property and just transport it to superheroes. Marvel did the exact opposite. We didn't even know there was an Avengers movies coming. And when we saw the first Iron Man movie, grew organically. I think we can officially say this Dark Universe isn't happening. Alex Kurtzman is leaving, and he's supposed to be the creator of all of this. So even the guy who's behind it all doesn't have faith in it anymore.
Especially when the core of a character belongs in a specific time period or in a specific setting. There's always a danger pulling that character out of what works. Because I'll be honest, before I started watching the Sherlock series with Benedict Cumberbatch, and I was thinking a modern day Sherlock Holmes, how is this going to work, right? Because everything we had seen up to that point was Victorian England and that specific setting. What they did worked, and it was smart because they kept the core of the character true, whereas it doesn't sound like that's what they did at all.
5 minutes of Sherlock is smarter than anything in this movie, that's for sure. There's bad movies that I can have fun with. This is just a bad movie. I had a hard time getting through it. Big rant for me for The Mummy. Don't bother with that. And so much for my plans of that whole universe. Oh, well. And another rant for A Cure for Wellness. A better film than The Mummy. At least it kind of knows what it wants to be and goes for. Not totally effective, but somewhat creepy watch. And a rant for Justice League. Better movie watching to come, let's hope.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we wrap it up for another week, guys?
Sounds good. Yep.
Okay. Next time we'll be back to discuss Coco, the new animated film from Pixar. Until then, please subscribe and give us a rating on our Apple Podcasts. Every little click helps. You can also like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if interested, you can always comment and search for our past reviews on our website, whyweseemovies@libsyn.com. Thank you for listening. Take care out there.
Later.
Hasta luego.
Ciao.
Come together.